Chapter 2 of Tractate Menachos continues covering the laws of temple flour offerings. The first Mishnah says, if somebody does kimitza, taking a handful of the mincha flour offering with intent to eat the remnants or to burn the handful the next day, which is at the wrong time essentially, Rabbi Yossi would agree that here there's liability for pigul, improper intent, of kares, which is divine punishment. If the intent was to burn the frankincense the following day, Rabbi Yossi says it's invalid, but there's no penalty of kares. The sages say it is pigul and there is liability of kares. Rabbi Yossi explains the difference here. Unlike by animal offerings where the whole offering is one unit, the frankincense is not considered to actually be a part of the mincha offering. The Gemara says, it specifies Rabbi Yossi's opinion in the first case to show that his logic is not that pigul cannot be caused by half a perimeter, and he actually concedes in that case. It said that Rabbi Yossi evidently holds, based on the latter case, that one perimeter doesn't affect pigul in a different perimeter, here being between frankincense and the komets. This would even apply between the 2 spoonfuls of the showbread offering, as they're the same type. Others disagree. The sages dispute this principle, saying as the 2 perimeters were placed together in a single vessel, so they're considered like one unit, and invalidating intent about one would affect the other. It said that if the gathering of the frankincense is done by a non-Kohen, it's invalid. It brings sources for this. Others disagree and suggest as it's dissimilar to all the other services, it could be valid even if done by a non-Kohen. New Mishnah. Regarding the 2 loaves of the Shavuos Shlamim lambs, if the lambs are slaughtered with intent to eat one of the loaves the next day at the wrong time, or by the showbread, somebody burned the 2 spoonfuls with intent to eat one of the breads the next day, Rabbi Yossi says the loaf with improper intent has pigul and there's liability for kares, and the other second loaf is invalid with no kares. The sages say both loaves have pigul and liability of kares. The Gemara says, if somebody has a pigul intent by the right thigh of an animal offering, the left thigh is not pigul. This is possibly as improper intent is very similar to contamination of impurity, which here would not affect the second limb, or is just based on a verse. It additionally disputes this opinion, trying to refute it. Regarding Rabbi Yossi and the sages' logic by their cases, it discusses this logic. Rabbi Yossi would treat the loaves like one unit, as they're essential to each other, and yet they're also separate, as they're prepared individually, meaning intent can combine or separate them. Related, it's asked, if somebody intended incorrect pigul intent towards one category of the breads of the Toda offering, or one category of the breads of the baked mincha offering, it said Rabbi Yossi and the sages' dispute applies there also. By a typical animal offering, some say that slaughtering and the throwing of the blood, which are both perimeters, can have intent combine, while the receiving and conveying of the blood don't combine. Others say that they can, as those steps are right next to each other. There's actually a differing opinion that none of these steps can combine for improper intents, although it debates between these. New Mishnah. Further, on the 2 loaves of the Shavuos Shlamim, if one of them becomes impure, Rabbi Yoda says neither should be burnt, as a communal offering isn't divided. The sages say the impure one is burned, and the pure one can be eaten. The Gemara clarifies this dispute takes place before the throwing of the animal's blood. If it was after, it's agreed the impure loaf is burned, and the pure one is eaten. It argues as to what exactly they're disputing over. Some suggest it's as to whether the tzitz will affect acceptance, but that's refuted at length. Rather, it's as Rabbi Yehuda had a tradition from his teachers that the communal offering is just not divided. New Mishnah. Improper pigul intent by the Toda offering makes the bread pigul, but pigul intent by the bread doesn't make the Toda pigul. Examples are given. Pigul intent by the lamb of the Shavuos offering makes the bread pigul, but pigul intent by the bread does not make the lamb's pigul. Examples of this are also given. The Gemara brings a source for this concept going through verses. Also, the logic is that the bread is supplementary to the offering, but the offering is not supplementary to the bread. It specifies this by both the Toda and Shavuos Shlamim, as the Toda and its bread aren't combined by waving, unlike the Shavuos offering, which is, so it brought both to show the same apply. A related question, if somebody slaughtered a Toda offering with intent to eat a combined olives volume minimum from the offering and from the bread with pigul intent on the bread, some suggest the bread is pigul and the offering is not. Others disagree, and they debate at length, quoting various cases. Others say the dispute applies to the slaughter of a Shavuos lamb with intent to eat of an olives volume of its companion the next day, and it's disputing if its companion refers to the other lamb, which would not become pigul, or the bread, which would become pigul. That's a debate. New Mishnah. According to Rabbi Meir, pigul intent by an offering makes its accompanying libation pigul once it's been sanctified in a vessel. Pigul by the libation doesn't make the offering itself pigul, which it gives examples of. The Gemara says their opinions which disagree with Rabbi Meir, which are quoted. Rabbi Meir specifically holds that the libation becomes established as attached to the offering, as it's similar in principle to the breads of the Toda. It cites similar logics by other cases. New Mishnah. If somebody has pigul intent by the burning of the komets, but not by the burning of the frankincense, or vice versa, Rabbi Meir says it's fully pigul with a penalty of kares, the sages say there's only pigul and kares if the pigul was across the full permitter step, which is both the komets handful and the frankincense. The sages agree with Rabbi Meir by the sinner's mincha and the sota's mincha that if there's pigul during just the komets, as there is no frankincense offered by those, there's full pigul liability. Related, if somebody slaughtered one of the Shavuos lambs with intent to eat the 2 loaves the next day, which is improper intent of time, or he burned one of the spoonfuls by the showbread with intent of improper time, Rabbi Meir says that's pigul and there's liability of kares. The sages say no, as the full permitter didn't have pigul. Also, if somebody slaughtered one of the Shavuos lambs with improper intent of time, it's pigul and the other is fine. If he slaughtered one and had intent for the other with improper time, both are fine. The Gemara clarifies this dispute is where the komets was offered with no intent and the frankincense had improper intent. If the komets was brought with improper intent and the frankincense was brought with no intent, we assume his incorrect intent carries over and it's all invalid. Others disagree and they dispute from some quoted cases. This concept is additionally discussed by various other types of offerings. Anyways, if somebody had incorrect pigul intent while carrying just the komets and not by the frankincense, it's a debate. Some say carrying it has the same status as separating the handful, others say it has the same status as burning. That's discussed. It brings some additional particular cases of pigul on only part of a permitter and the resulting discussions. Some say if somebody burned the komets on the altar with intent to burn the frankincense and to eat the remainder at the wrong time, it's pigul. This is as the pigul intent here combined all aspects of the mincha offering. Also, it said if somebody burned komets on an altar with intent to eat the remainder on the next day, it's agreed it's not valid, which then discusses the specific wording used here. And that's the end of chapter 2.